KBUZ listeners, I'm your host, Christopher Ortiz, and we have a very special guest on the show today. Not only is he the winner of America's Got Talent Season 2, but he also is a headliner at the Mirage Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas for the past 6 years. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my good friend and fellow ventriloquist, Terry Fator. Terry, how are you, sir?
Oh, it's wonderful to be on the radio with you, Chris. It's great to hear from you.
You know, when I first announced this interview, a lot of my friends said, "Oh, that's an April Fool's joke. Like, it's not happening." So,
well, it is April Fool's, and we're talking, aren't we?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good thing. So, first of all, I have to thank you not only for doing this interview, but also all that you've done for me in the past 9 years. I mean, you're the reason why I started doing this ventriloquism thing, and you've just been a positive influence on me. So I have to thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate that. You know, one of my goals in life from the time I was young was I really wanted to hopefully inspire others to take up the art and to hopefully try to be their best. And it's great to hear from people like you. You know, we met at the State Fair years and years ago. Des Moines, wasn't it?
Yep, 2005 at the Iowa State Fair.
The Iowa State Fair, yeah. And so, you know, to be able to have inspired you to do ventriloquism, and I just heard from a guy named who was on Denmark's Got Talent, and he contacted me and told me that I inspired him to be a ventriloquist, and he got into the finals of Denmark's Got Talent. So, you know, awesome. To hear these stories and to find out is very, very satisfying, and I'm very proud.
That's awesome. And, you know, doing ventriloquism for the past 9 years, I heard your interview on Ventriloquism Weekly and how I wasn't too good at ventriloquism when I first started. And but you know, Graceland has taken me in, and people have grown to love the puppets, I guess.
That's awesome. You know, that's the thing though, is none of us are very good when we first start. You know, we have to. That's the whole point of practicing. It's the ones who take themselves and who work on it and continue to rehearse and practice. And, you know, there does come a time when you don't have to practice. There does come a time when, if you're performing, like for myself, you know, I perform 4 to 6 nights a week, and I don't need to practice every day because when I perform, that is, you know, practicing. That's working on my art. But until you get to that point where you're performing regularly and that's the time when you get to practice, I suggest that you practice every single day. And that doesn't matter. That's not just about ventriloquism. That's about anything, whether it's guitar playing or writing or or painting, or anything.
Exactly. So, Terry, how did you get started in this ventriloquism thing?
Well, I found a book in my school library on how to be a ventriloquist. I was 10 years old in 1975, and it just looked like I'd kind of been looking into doing other types of entertainment. I'd worked on magic, and I'd worked on some other different types, you know, hypnosis and other things. And ventriloquism really just kind of seemed like a lot of fun. Man, I didn't know what an uphill battle it was going to be. Thank goodness for people like myself and Jeff Dunham who have kind of paved the way for ventriloquists. But I can promise you, when Jeff Dunham and I were out there trying to get known, boy, there was a lot of bias against ventriloquists. It was, you know, I couldn't get cruise ships to book me because as soon as they saw that I was a ventriloquist, they would throw my promo packs right in the cash.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's not happening anymore. Now that there are 2 very successful ventriloquists out there.
Yeah. The one thing I have to ask you, how was it like to be on national television?
Well, it was amazing and surreal, but the interesting thing about it was that when I was actually doing the performances, I wasn't aware that I was on national television. It was only after when I would watch the replay later, because see, we would do it live, and it would be live in New York. So it was 5 o'clock. Then we got to watch ourselves on television in the evenings on the replay on the West Coast, because at the time we were taping in L.A. So the funny thing was, I was just so used to performing. And, you know, this is something that I recommend to people. If you're a performer, and whether you're a singer or you do recitation or you're a guitar player or a ventriloquist or a puppeteer, use every single opportunity you possibly can to perform. You know, before America's Got Talent was ever considered for me, I would always carry my puppets with me in my car. And if I went to a party or something, I would kind of whisper to people, I'd be like, I'm a ventriloquist, I'll do a show if you want. And so they would feel, that sounds like fun. So I would pull out my puppets and do a show. Sometimes there'd only be, 5 or 10 people there. I didn't care. And so let me tell you, when you're up there in front of those producers, the first thing you do when you go on a show like America's Got Talent is you perform you do a showcase for about 5 or 6 producers. And I was so used to performing in living rooms, at parties, and with friends that it didn't scare me because I just did what I had done 100 times.
Yeah.
So I really highly recommend that you do that. And also, I recommend that you perform as often as you can, because when I stepped out on that stage, I was completely unaware that there were cameras or judges or anything else. All I saw was the audience, and I focused on the audience, and I did my show. And then afterwards, I'm like, holy cow, I just performed on television.
That's the one piece of advice I remember you giving me is perform at every chance that you get. And, anytime you have an opportunity, go for it. So that's awesome. All those performances that you did helped you gear up for America's Got Talent.
Completely. Some people, if they're not used to it, if the only place you've ever performed or is in the shower, then man, when you get up in front of those producers and they're trying to determine whether or not going to be on America's Got Talent or American Idol, you're going to freeze.
Yeah.
If you've done it in front of your friends and family, it's going to be just like you're in front of your friends and family. There's not. It's going to really take a lot of the pressure off. So
yeah, that is awesome. When you won America's Got Talent, what was the biggest thing that you splurged on?
That's a good question. The first thing I bought was a car. Okay. I really wanted a car.
Understandable.
I always wanted a convertible, so I went out and bought myself a Lexus convertible. I think it was $80,000. And I paid cash for it.
Well-deserved cash, though.
Yes, exactly. And actually, though, I say that, but that was what I bought after I won the money.
Okay.
My first splurge was, iPhones had just come out that year, like in June, I think it was. And I was on the show, and I really, really, really wanted an iPhone. And the night I performed, my last performance where I did Roy Orbison and Garth Brooks, I went home after the performance, and I thought, look, I may not have just won, but I really feel that I put a performance on of my lifetime, and I believe I did $1 million performance regardless of whether I win or not. So the next day I went out to celebrate my performance, not the win, but a performance that I felt deserved to win, and I bought an iPhone. So that was kind of my first splurge.
Yay.
And luckily I did win, and then got the big check a couple of months later. So
I saw a video on YouTube, and I think Piers Morgan came to visit you at your theater, and he was joking, and he was like, "You actually didn't win, so we'll be taking the theater away and stuff." So
yeah,
that was really funny.
Piers is interesting. He was seriously like a proud dad. I mean, it was amazing. His relationship to me after the show, he was so incredibly proud. And he told me, and I asked him why. I said, why are you so proud? He said, because I truly believe that we have found someone who is really going to make a mark in the entertainment industry, and I'm really proud to have been a part of that. And of course, 6 year in Vegas, a very successful show in Las Vegas at the Mirage, and then so it's actually 7 years because I was a year at the Las Vegas Hilton, had a very successful run there. I just won. I just won Best Impersonator in Vegas, and it was like my third or fourth time to do that for the Las Vegas Review. So, to be able to be winning awards and making a name in Vegas is just amazing. And so what a fun ride this has been.
And it's been an honor to see you go from when I first met you to where you are now.
Yeah, that's it seems like it is such a long time ago, isn't it?
Yes.
That was like 2005, wasn't it, when we met at the Iowa State Fair?
Yes, when I was 10 years old. That was 9 years ago.
Oh, my goodness, 9 years ago. Wow.
It's been a while.
Incredible. It has. That's amazing.
After all of this success, Terry, though, was there ever a time where you doubted yourself and was like, I don't know if this is going to work out?
Absolutely. And I never doubted myself. I never doubted my talent, but I did doubt that I would ever achieve the type of success that I had always dreamed of. And the interesting thing about that was, rather than make that discourage me, my advice to people say, do you have any advice for me? And I say, yes. It's okay to give up on the dream. It's never okay to stop working towards a dream. And what I mean by that is, there came a time when I was about 40 years old, 41 maybe, And I said, this dream, I always thought I would be successful. And the dream of the type of success I hoped I would have just had never happened. And nothing I did seemed to make it happen. So I said, it's probably never going to happen. But you know what? I can still be the best that I can possibly be. So I dedicated myself to being the best ventriloquist and the best impersonator I could be, not for the hopes of being famous one day, but just for myself, because I wanted to be proud of myself. I wanted to know that I was giving all I could to the talent that I had been given.
Of course.
And so I was performing at a lot of, like the state fair. When I met you, I was performing at a lot of elementary schools. Mm-hmm. And I just said, it doesn't matter. I don't care if I'm, performing for first graders. I want to be the best, every time I set foot on stage. And interestingly enough, even though I gave up on the dream, because I didn't give up on working towards it and working towards being the best, my dreams were all able to come true in way bigger fashion than I could have possibly imagined, just a few years before.
Yeah, and you simply are one of the best. That's all I have to say, Terry. What college?
That's very nice of you. Thank
What college did you go to, and what did you study there?
I went to Liberty University in Lynchburg, Virginia, and I studied acting and radio. So
okay.
I didn't care what I was doing. I didn't care if I was a DJ or if I just knew I wanted to do something that was entertainment. So I thought doing the radio, actually taking radio was excellent for me because it helped me to learn how to speak properly and to mm-hmm. I had a Texas accent, and I was able to lose my Texas accent. So I didn't get pigeonholed in just Southern, I didn't want to get pigeonholed, so it was like I was just a Southern comedian. Although that seems to be working out well for Larry the Cable Guy, right?
There we go, yeah. No, I mess up on the radio all the time, and I feel so bad to the people that listen, but I think I'm getting better as time goes on, so...
well, that's why you're doing it, man. You have to do it to get better.
That's definitely true. Can't agree more with that. And... you say you changed your act around 2005 when you not only do ventriloquism, but when you sing and do it at the same time. How long were you doing that before we met?
I had just started doing it because apparently it was 10 years ago. No, it was 9 years ago, right? That's what you said?
Yep.
So that would have been 2006. It was 2005, so I'd only been doing it a few months. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, I believe the Iowa State Fair that year you saw me was the first time I had ever done an entire show where all the puppets did impressions.
Woo.
Because in late 2005, I saw an impressionist in Las Vegas named Danny Gans, mm-hmm. and he did this amazing show where he was doing all these impressions, and I'm sitting in the audience and I'm thinking, this is incredible. I do every single impression he does, and I did. I could do all the songs I was doing, and I had been doing for years in a band, and I'm thinking, I can do this. I can do what he does. And I thought, well, there's already a Danny Gans. There's already somebody like him. So I need to come up with a twist. And I thought, well, I am a ventriloquist. Why don't I just have my puppets do the impressions? And so I spent about 6 to 8 months rewriting my show and putting impressions in for every single puppet. So that year when you saw me at the Iowa State Fair, we met. It was the first time I had ever actually put together an entire show with just impressions, with all the puppets doing just impressions. So remarkably, and that's interestingly, that's when things actually started to take off for me. People, I don't know if you remember, but at that time, there were the crowd wasn't. I was on a smaller stage, but the crowds were pretty big, weren't they? I mean, they were kind of standing. There was standing room only by the time I finished my show.
Yeah, it was a kid stage, and fairly a lot of people come to some shows, and you were one of the entertainers that brought in the crowd, actually.
Yeah, and see, that did not happen before I started doing impressions. Before I started doing impressions, I would do a puppet, I would do a few jokes, mm-hmm. and then when I would start to pick up another puppet, my entire crowd would leave, and then I would start over. But once I started doing impressions, I think what happened was people were fascinated, and they all wanted to see what the next impression was going to be, which I think is exactly what happened on America's Got Talent. That's why I kept getting through, because people would vote for me because they were really interested to see what impression and what I was going to use in the next show. So it was quite remarkable how it happened.
And you didn't just start to sing, months before the Iowa State Fair. You were actually in a band, correct?
I was, yes. I was always a singer. I was a person who sang at school and church, and anytime I could, I got the opportunity to sing. Mm-hmm. In fact, I bought a little sound system when I was a teenager. I was about 16. And I used to put on performances. I'd go down to the local community college, and I would talk to him about doing a performance for free in the Student Union building, and I would just set up my stuff, and I would get karaoke tapes, and I would sit there and sing songs to the, put on a show. So I was really proactive in my career. I wasn't one that just kind of had hopes. I would do everything I could anytime I got an opportunity to perform. And even when I didn't get the opportunity, I tried to make the opportunities, because I just felt that the only way to get good at something is to do it. And, I wanted to get comfortable in front of crowds. So I started a band in 1988 and went all the way through 2002 with that band, and then went solo in 2002, and that took me to 2007 when America's Got Talent came along. So I had been doing it for decades.
Huh. Well, what is your most favorite impression to do, and why?
Michael Jackson. Love doing Michael Jackson, and I do. And the reason why is it was one of my first really, really fun. I always did impressions. I had puppets that would do Michael Jackson impressions when I was 10 and 11 and 12.
Yeah.
But it was one of the first times I actually would do performances as Michael Jackson at college. And what I would do is, the reason I learned the Thriller album, I learned how to sing the entire Thriller album in Michael Jackson's voice.
Wow.
And the reason I did it was because my friends, it was my favorite album at the time, and my friends were saying that there was no way that Michael Jackson could sing like that if he wasn't, A, taking female hormones, or B, had been castrated. And I said, that is the dumbest, and they were serious. And I was like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. I said, that's stupid. There's no way. I said, I could sing like that. They're like, no, you couldn't. So I actually learned how to sing like Michael Jackson. And what I did was I rewrote the words to the songs and made them about the college. And I would do these comedy performances as Michael Jackson singing the songs off of Thriller, using words that I had, kind of Weird Al Yankovic type, where I'd rewritten the words to be about different things that went on at the college. So,
could you give us a little sample of a Michael Jackson impression for us?
Oh, yeah. So I'll do The Girl Is Mine.
Okay.
If not, you walked right in my dreams. Since I met her from the start, I'm so proud I am the only one who is special in her heart. The girl is mine. Doggone girl is mine. There you go.
Oh, my goodness. Awesome. Fantastic. That was like on pitch. That was, oh my goodness. No wonder you're in Vegas. So, Terry,
it's my favorite impression. I love it.
Within reason, too. Terry, is there anyone that you haven't met, maybe celebrity-wise or non-celebrity-wise, that you haven't met yet?
Oh, do you mean that I want to meet, or?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I really would like to meet Dick Van Dyke, because I was so influenced by him growing up. Mm-hmm. I'd love to meet Tim Conway and Carol Burnett and some of these people like this, because they were huge influences on my life. And one of my things is I would love to be able to entertain people that influence me. Mel Brooks, Carl Reiner, these are all people from my generation. I'm 49, and I grew up listening to these people and watching these people, and they influenced me in huge ways. So that would be amazing to be able to meet some of those and to actually have them in my show. I've had a few people, like, Mel Gibson and Adam Sandler and Ray Romano and people like that, Jay Leno. So it's really cool to be able to meet these people. But, yeah, so I'm still working on it. I'm with some of the older ones, I'm hoping I can get it before they pass over into the next dimension. I would kind of like to get them while they're still here on Earth, if possible.
Yes. Terry, I just have to ask, how do you write material for your Vegas shows? And was there ever a line that was crossed when you are writing material for your show?
I have occasionally crossed. I try to keep my show family friendly. I want to be one of the only shows in town in Las Vegas that you can bring your kids to. And but at the same time, I don't want to be, a fuddy-duddy or a prudish show. I want to make sure that my show is fun and has some adult humor. So my goal is that anytime I do an adult joke, I want there to be a clean explanation for the kids, so that the adult mind might go one direction and the kids' mind goes a completely different direction. And a perfect example of that is when when Winston talks about the Turtle Ranch, the Turtle Ranch, we have places called the Bunny Ranch here in Nevada. I'll let you look it up on the internet if you're not sure what that is. But it's a place for adults.
I have an idea.
But a kid would look at it and think a turtle ranch would be a place where turtles would go to ride horses. So, I love jokes like that have the double entendre. And there have been times when I did kind of cross that line. And go for the cheap laugh, and I always regretted it because I just feel like that the show needs to always have, and let me tell you, it's always harder to write clean material than it is dirty material. Dirty material is always going to get a laugh because of the shock value of it, but it also is not going to have the satisfaction, and it's not going to have the genius of something where you might be able to tell the same type of joke without just being overtly dirty about it. So I love that challenge as well. Of knowing it's really easy to get a laugh when you go the dirty route. It's much harder to try to think of something that's not dirty and still be just as funny. So,
See, and that's the thing that I have trouble with growing up is writing material that is going to get laughs, but it's not going to be quite that dirty. So,
yeah. And dirty material is always funny, especially when you're a ventriloquist. When puppets are dirty, it's always funny. But it's also cheap. It's not you're going for the cheap. To me, it's the lazy way. When your puppet says a swear word, you're always 100% of the time you're going to get a laugh. But that's a cheap laugh. That's kind of cheating in my mind. I'd rather get a laugh because the puppet's funny.
Yeah. I'd much rather go the clean entertainer route as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And you still do road dates too, don't you?
I certainly do. Yeah, I'm going to Branson in mid-April. I just did Nashville. I just did Florida. I travel all over. I just did New York City about a couple of months ago. So yeah.
Why do you still go on the road if you're in Las Vegas? Twofold. One reason is that a lot of fans, I have a lot of fans from America's Got Talent that just can't travel for whatever reason. Maybe it's physical, maybe they can't afford it. And I want them to be able to see the show too. It's not the same show. It's a completely different show than what I do in Las Vegas, but it's still, they get to see my performances. It's just as good a show. It's just different. And the second thing is I just want to make sure that, it gives me an opportunity to advertise outside of Vegas so that people remember that I'm in Vegas. So. Very good. Well, we just listened to one of your songs, Live, off of your album, It Starts Tonight. Why did you write that album? The reason I did the album is I love to sing. I love to just do original material. I like to write songs. I like to... and that's just a different aspect of my entertainment personality than just doing impressions and puppets, which, by the way, I love doing. And it gives me a way to outlet my creativity. If you're an artist, you're an artist. You love to create, you love to perform. Exactly. And that's just one of the ways. And I wanted, my show is always very positive. I'm a very positive person. I want happiness and positivity to be reflected in everything I do. And so the album that I did has, is a very positive, has a lot of positives to it, and positive messages. You just played the song "Live." You played "It Starts Tonight" earlier, and those are both songs about saying, it's time. I need to just stop focusing on the past, and I just move forward and focus on the future and change my life and into the direction I want it to be. And those are messages that I really identify with. Another song that I really like on the album is called Heroes, and it's really great how you honor the military. And what are your feelings that made you want to do that song?
Well, I'm a big supporter of the military. All of the money I make from sales of my album, from my CD, It Starts Tonight, and my DVD, and all of my puppets, if you buy them online or on the road or at the Mirage, all the money I make goes to help the military, to help wounded warriors and dying veterans and the children of those who have fallen in combat. And it's just important to me. We have to remember the sacrifices that these brave people make, and we don't have a draft, so these people choose to go in there, and they put their lives at risk for us, our freedom, and for this great country of ours. And it's just a way of making sure they never forget how much we appreciate what they do.
Exactly. And besides writing songs, what are your favorite things to do in your free time?
Play video games. I love to play video games.
Now,
I got into Destiny. Man, I played it like 6 hours a day for about 2 or 3 months when it came out, and now I played a little bit. But I got my level up to level 31, and I said, and everybody else was 32, and I'm like, yeah, I'm a little tired. I'm going to start that. And plus I had to write Rusty. I had to put the new puppet in.
Is Destiny a PlayStation game or an Xbox game?
Both. Yeah, it's both PlayStation and Xbox. It's a space kind of a space game. It's fantastic. I just love it.
One of my favorite video games. I just got a PlayStation for Christmas, and one of my favorite games is Assassin's Creed. Don't know why.
Is Assassin's Creed? Yeah, good game. That's a great game.
Yes. So, an important question for all of us in college: how do those like myself find that outlet to start doing what they love regularly?
You know, it's just anywhere and everywhere. You obviously, if you're to a point where you feel like you're professional enough to get a real paycheck, find an agent. You know, find an agent. Go, just look in the phone book. Look, we don't have phone books anymore. Look online. Try to find a good agent. If you want one, who specializes in fairs, because for 20 years I did fairs, just like the Iowa State Fair where I met you, and you find one who specializes in fairs and get out there. But really, just anywhere and everywhere. Make sure, in order to get to that point, you have to perform. You have to be in front of people. You have to be doing shows, whether it's your friends, your family. If you're at college, do something for your dorm. Do something, set it up. And that's the only way to get over stage fright and to get over that feeling of, trepidation when you're like, oh, I'm not really sure if I want to do this. I don't have that anymore, and it's because of the hundreds of times I performed for friends, family, schools, churches, anywhere I could. I step out on a stage and I'm as comfortable as I am, walking into to a supermarket. Mm-hmm. And it's because of I spent so much time doing that. So that's really my recommendation.
That's awesome. You mentioned walking into a supermarket. I don't know why this question popped up in my head, but did you, after you won America's Got Talent, did it hit you? I remember a story you told about going into an airport and someone came up to you.
Yes. Yeah, it was really funny because I was at the Las Vegas airport, and this lady came up to me so excited, and she said, oh my gosh, I flew into Vegas, and I was so hoping I would see a celebrity, and I got really excited too. I'm like, oh my gosh, who did you see? And she said, you. And I was so confused because it's weird. Here I've been in Vegas for 6 years. It was 8 years ago that I did America's Got Talent, and I still don't feel like a celebrity. I just feel like Terry, Mm-hmm. But it's weird because I did go from Terry to being Terry Fator. Once you become Terry Fator, or you become, your first, when you go from being Chris to, oh, it's Christopher Ortiz, then you've reached a certain level in your career.
Yeah, and I don't know what's just so cool about meeting you. In 2005 to now, you are still the most humblest of people that I know. And
thank you.
That's really great. And I know you just celebrated your 6th year anniversary at the Mirage in Las Vegas, and you have a new robot puppet named Rusty. And what was your inspiration for him?
I just try to come up with different ideas, unique ideas, things that I haven't ever seen. I have a crash test dummy puppet in my show in Vegas because I never saw anybody do a crash test dummy puppet. I have a robot puppet because I've never seen anybody do a robot puppet, something unique. And that's really kind of where my ideas come from. And it doesn't even have to be a completely unique idea. I might come up with an idea that somebody else has something similar, but my idea is an original idea. I'm sure there are other Elvis impersonators out there, but my Elvis impersonator is a completely original type of Elvis impersonator character.
He doesn't know any Elvis songs.
So yes, exactly. He's the only Elvis impersonator that doesn't know any Elvis songs. So you got to just you got to try to come up with your original ideas. It doesn't have to be something no one's ever thought of. You just have to kind of make sure that it's an original take on that idea, and that's really the key to creating characters.
And what's so cool about it is your show, it's so diverse. I mean, you have a turtle, you have a crash test dummy, you have a robot now, you have a cougar, you have a flamboyant character.
Exactly. That's a good way to describe Barry. Very fabulous.
So do you have any advice for anyone, young or old, interested in the art of ventriloquism, who maybe are just starting out?
Yeah, it's so much easier now than it was when I was a kid because the internet has just made, and this because you're young enough to have really had the internet as a part of your life. When you want a puppet, you just go online, man. When I wanted a puppet, holy cow, I had to write off, snail mail, and I had to wait for a catalog, and I had to, it was just a nightmare. So you really just do some searches for ventriloquism. There are tons of things. I believe it's learn-ventriloquism.com. Tom Crowell has an amazing online ventriloquism course that I would have killed for when I was 10, 11. That just didn't, I had to teach myself because first of all, I couldn't afford it. There was a ventriloquist course, but we didn't have a lot of money, so I couldn't afford it. But now there's so much out there available. You can get books and courses and everything else, videos that'll teach you. And so I just say go online and have fun. The things that will give you routines you can do. And it's fine to buy routines off of the internet and everything, but really the key is to learn to write your own routines and not depend on somebody else. Mm-hmm. That's what you want, something original and different and unique. That's where you're not actually just memorizing somebody else's. But that's good for beginners, but you'll never really be successful unless you're coming up with funny original material on your own. And that's the same as, with comedian too. Mm-hmm. So
I was going to say I might have taken your Winston BG idea for my junior high talent show and Michael Jackson talent show. So I have written my own material now, just for the record. But
that's fantastic.
Who has been the biggest influence ventriloquism-wise for you? Who did you look up to when you were younger?
It was just anyone and everyone. Willie Tyler and Lester, Sherry Lewis, Jimmy Nelson, Edgar Bergen. I got Edgar Bergen records and cassette tapes when I was a kid. I would occasionally see Edgar Bergen or Jimmy Nelson or Willie Tyler and Lester on television. Jay Johnson, who was on a television show called So it was just, again, it's so much easier now because all you got to do is go to YouTube and type in ventriloquist, and you'll see a host of very good ventriloquists out there that you can watch. And back then, boy, I just had to get lucky. My dad or my mom would start yelling, and they'd be like, oh my gosh, there's a ventriloquist on the Tonight Show, and I'd run in, and try to watch it. So that was kind of how I had to do it when I was young. So, but nowadays it's so much easier because you just got access to all that stuff, Facebook and YouTube and everything else. It's just a wonderful time on the planet to want to be something like a ventriloquist or a magician or a comedian.
It's funny you mentioned your parents yelling at you, telling you there's a ventriloquist on TV, because it's very similar in my household too.
It's probably the same though if you're a magician. Anytime a magician's going to be on the show, they probably do the same thing to the kids. Hey, there's a magician on. You run in there. You just want to, you want to watch others. You want to watch professionals. Mm-hmm. And the only way to become that professional is to do it.
Exactly. And believe it or not, there was actually, I think he's a sophomore now. His name is Steve Hensley that goes here at Graceland, and he's now trying to be a comedian. But before that, his parents thought he needed something more cool, I guess, and they got him 2 ventriloquist puppets.
Oh, wow.
And I've talked to him a little bit about them, and I think actually Clinton Detweiler made them.
Oh, my goodness.
And so I'm trying to
Clinton.
see them, and, he asked me, how the heck do you work them? Because it's so hard to, figure out the controls and stuff. And I haven't seen them yet, but I'm very eager to. And Clinton Detweiler was a huge part of your life, too, wasn't he?
He certainly was. He didn't realize what an influence he was on me. I kind of came out of nowhere. Nobody knew anything about me until I went on America's Got Talent, at least in the ventriloquism community. But Clinton did know me because I had been performing professionally for years before America's Got Talent. And when a puppet would break, I would call him there in Littleton, Colorado, and I would say, Clinton, you got to fix my puppet. And he would always kind of chastise me and say, you can't do this to me. But he always got the puppet back to me within a day. I would overnight the puppet to him, he would fix it, and then overnight it, and he would fix it the same day. So I would only be without the puppet for like 2 days. And every time he would say, "You got to quit doing this to me," but then he would always do it. And then it was interesting because after he saw me on America's Got Talent, he had my phone number. He called me and he said, "Oh my gosh, I had no idea. I've been working with you for years and I had no idea." And he got so excited. So I actually drove. He didn't fly, and I drove him and he and his wife Adelia. In a Winnebago. I had a driver and everything, and I had them drive Colorado down here to Vegas for my first anniversary and got pictures with him. And he passed away last year, unfortunately, but he was a huge influence on me and kind of like a surrogate dad to me and a mentor. So I love him so very much.
I had little interactions with him. I emailed him back and forth a couple times, and I actually got 2 of his unique ventriloquist coins, too, which are pretty cool and that I cherish from now on. And it's good to know that he had such a positive influence on you.
Yeah, and what an honor for him to put me on one of those coins, because these were legends. The ones he was doing were, Mayer and Bergen and Jimmy Nelson, and he actually made a coin with me on it. And, he told me, he said, "I believe you're going to be a ventriloquism legend," and he put me on a coin. It was one of the greatest honors of my entire life.
That's great. Terry, I just have to ask you, how does it feel with all of your gifts that you've been given from God? Because you are one talented guy.
Thank you. How does it feel to have?
Well, I don't.
It's an honor. It's an honor. But that's the thing is, I don't take any credit whatsoever for the gifts because God did give me these gifts. What you do with those gifts is entirely up to you. God can give you a gift of maybe you have a gift of a green thumb, or you have a gift of writing, and you can write poetry, or you can write music, or whatever. Mm-hmm. And if you squander those gifts and you don't cultivate them and make them as good as they can possibly be, then you're kind of throwing. In my opinion, you're almost throwing dirt in God's eyes and saying, I don't care that you gave me these gifts. I'm not going to utilize them, and I just feel like that's not a good way to live. You should be proud of the gifts that God gives you and make them as be the best you can at them. That's the way to give God the glory.
And that's
what He's given you.
That's what I always reflect on too, is because I don't think God gives you things in your life just to ignore. Like with this ventriloquism talent, I think God put that in my life for a reason, and so that's why I'm still working and still doing it today.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Exactly. How does it feel? This question makes a lot more sense. How does it feel to know that you've inspired many ventriloquists today, such as like Chase and Matt and I?
It's amazing. I mean, it's such a feeling of satisfaction knowing, because that's really. I mean, obviously, I am a Christian, and I believe that we live on after this. Mm-hmm. But it's a way of living on in a different way than the fact that that those of us who are believers are going to be able to join each other and God in heaven. To know that you're making a legacy here on earth as well that is going to continue, because hopefully you and others who are inspired will inspire another generation. It's like someone like Edgar Bergen or Jimmy Nelson. Jimmy Nelson is in his 80s. Edgar Bergen passed away in 78, and yet there are still tons of people all over the world that are ventriloquists who are inspired by them, and their gift will continue to live on through the accomplishments of those who were inspired by them. And so it's a wonderful, it's another way of achieving immortality other than the fact that we have eternal souls, but it's a way of making a positive impact on the world too. And what a wonderful honor it is to be a part of that.
It's always weird to describe the International Ventriloquist Convention because, one, people don't even know that it's a real thing, and two, describing, that 600 people with puppets come to one place is not really the best way to describe something, I guess.
No. And it's definitely unusual, but what a fun thing. And the whole purpose of it, though, is to hopefully encourage people to get better, people to make their, to use their gifts and to learn different techniques and better ways to pronounce words without you moving your lips, and better ways to write material and things. So hopefully it's something that people will latch onto and go to for inspiration and instruction, and they'll go away being better than they were when they got there.
Yes, and the reason that I actually went to the convention my first year was because I won your Clinton Detweiler Scholarship. And
yeah, that's awesome. And that's the reason I did that, was because when I was young, I couldn't afford to go, and I just wanted to make sure that that I was doing my best to try to encourage others and give them the opportunities if they were in the same situation I was.
And I think that was the year you went as well, correct? My first year? You were there and you did the show in Cincinnati?
Yeah, that wasn't the first time I'd been there, but I did go and do a performance there, and I bussed all of the people over from the convention over to another little theater that we had that I had booked the show to do the show, and so it was a lot of fun. Actually, it was the very first performance of the new road show that I've been doing. I've been doing it now a couple of years, but it was the very first time I'd ever performed it in public, and so that was a lot of fun to be able to do that with a ventriloquist convention there.
Could you tell us a little bit more about your road show and how it differs from the Las Vegas shows?
Yeah, my Las Vegas show is kind of the end result of all of the hard work. It's where, you know, you go and you see all of the created characters, the doing what they were created to do. The road show, and I came up with this idea because the Mirage, I have an exclusive contract with the Mirage, and they really didn't like the idea that I was going to take the show that I do there over all across the country, and we even did some shows in Canada, because they said, well, if they can see it in Canada or if they can see it over in Branson, why would they want to come to the Mirage? So I said, well, what if I write a totally different show, and what if I make it the life story of how I went from, because I grew up a janitor. I was a janitor in Corsicana, Texas. And I said, what if I tell the story of how I went from being a janitor in a small town in Texas to headlining at the Mirage? And then it's kind of like an hour-and-a-half show that feeds into to saying, hey, I got the gig at the Mirage at the end of my road show, and now you have to come to the Mirage to see the show I put together there. And the Mirage executives loved the idea. So that's what I do now is, I go in there and I'll tell you my whole story, how I got started, how I learned the craft, how I started doing impressions and ventriloquism, and then I take you through the entire experience of what it was like behind the scenes on America's Got Talent. And then the end of the show is getting the Mirage contract, and then encouraging people to come out and see the show at the Mirage. So, and
what's so cool is that for your Las Vegas show, you switch things up about every year or two, don't you?
I actually switch them up all the time. It's not just every year or two. I'll constantly be adding and subtracting and removing and adding. Just taking things, switching characters out. It's kind of an organic way of keeping the show. I don't rewrite the show every year. I'll just replace the Winston routine, or I'll replace the Vicky routine or something like that. Just keep the show new. I've had people that have seen the show 11 times in Vegas and seen a different show every single time, and that's really how I do that.
And that's why people keep coming, because you change up the show and you keep it fresh.
Yes. And I also like to add jokes. If there's something that everybody is talking about, a scandal or something that everybody's talking about, I try to put jokes about that in the show so that I keep the show current as well.
I see. What is your hope for the future of ventriloquism? I just hope ventriloquism becomes more of a viable type of entertainment for all ages. For the longest time, ventriloquists have been relegated. Like you said, it was a kids' stage, at the Iowa State Fair. We have been relegated to children's entertainers. People look at us and say, my kid would love you, or you should go to a party, or should play my kid's birthday party. And so the thing is that, we're so much more than that. Here, I have been a successful ventriloquist performing in Las Vegas as a Las Vegas headliner now for 7 years. And that's the whole thing, is that we don't have to just be for kids' birthday parties or for, children's church. We actually can be a viable source of entertainment for adults as well.
And, somebody like Jeff Dunham has a show that has a lot of swearing and a lot of adult material, which is great and fine, and I have no problem with that. But my show is just the adult humor that I do is more intellectual rather than, I never swear in my show. My show is always, clean and always has, like I said, if I do something that might have an adult meaning to it, there's always a clean explanation for the kids. And so that's really how I like to do it. But obviously I'm a viable entertainer for adults because in Las Vegas is a place where adults go to party. So that's really what I would like to see. I would like to see people not just immediately look at ventriloquists and think, oh, that would be great for my kid, and hopefully that'll happen one day.
I think it will. A big question that some ventriloquists have, are you coming back to the convention this year?
No, I won't this year. I just don't have time, but I'm hoping to come back next year. I'm going to do my best to get back there next year. All
right, sounds good. And this was just a random question that someone wanted to ask, have you ever made your own puppets?
No, I have zero ability in that area. I can barely draw a stick figure, much less. And I have I guess God just decided that he was going to cut the talent off at entertaining because I can't do crafts and art. I can't do any of it. So that's one thing that I just so admire about Jeff Dunham is he makes all of his own puppets, but I have to actually pay puppet makers to make mine.
Mm-hmm. But you've been given the gift of ventriloquism and impressions, and that's all you could ask for.
Exactly. So I don't feel like I got the short end of the stick. I feel like I did pretty okay.
What advice do you have for people to achieve their goals and maybe accomplishing their dreams?
Again, never stop working toward the dream. Mm-hmm. Whether the dream comes true or not is irrelevant, but your job is to be the best that you are capable of being. And when that door opens, if you're not ready to walk through it, that's no one's fault but your own. Mm-hmm. So, if you end up auditioning for America's Got Talent and you go in half-cocked and not fully prepared and you're not ready with, 6 amazing performances that you're ready to go all the way to the end and you get kicked out, that's your fault. That's nobody's fault but your own.
Exactly.
When that door opens, you better be ready to walk through it. And that the only way you're going to have that happen is to work and practice and practice and practice and practice so you can do it in your sleep.
Yes, sir. Words of the wise from Terry Fator, ladies and gentlemen. Terry, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Chris. It's so great talking to you again.
And just so you know, Terry is going to be in Branson, Missouri, April 18th and 19th at the Andy Williams Moon River Theater. And if you'd like to know more about this show, just head on over to terryfator.com.